Hello everybody, and thank you for watching this recording. In this video we will be covering chapter 2 in our textbook that speaks about strategic pricing. While this topic will continue for a good portion of the course, this week's lesson puts a focus on some key issues and lessons we must understand as revenue managers, some of which may appear to contradict various lessons you've learned from other disciplines. So it proves to be an interesting video. Specifically, during this lesson, we'll be able to examine the concept of price from two different perspectives, that of a buyer and a seller. We'll also be able to discuss and understand why supply, demand, and costs alone are not sufficient enough to make good revenue management decisions. Lastly, we will define and discuss strategic pricing and how at this point to begin to implement it in our organizations. What is price? Seems like a very easy concept to conceptualize. We engage with prices every day. We buy coffee, a sandwich, we pay our rent and our utility bills. However, this is a rather one-sided conceptualization of price. We understand price to be the amount of money charged for goods and services when sellers of those items regard it as the value of the product and service it sells. That being said, only one definition above, on this slide, includes an important term that is now known to be exceptionally important in RM, or revenue management decisions. That is value. That being said, maybe we can define price in a better way as classifying it as either a verb or a noun. As a noun, price is a measure or amount of value given up by the seller and buyer for a product or service. For example, let's say you decide to go to Edmonton this week and present at a conference you don't really want to go to. Because you don't really want to go there, you decide to get a nice hotel room where you can relax and enjoy your free evenings. Let's also say that this is a much nicer room than usual, and you pay $180 per night opposed to the normal $140 per night for the lesser rooms. In this example, the price of the room represents both my and the seller's evaluation or measure of value for the nicer room. If I agree to pay the $180 per night, I also agree to the value the seller has put on the room. On the other hand, price can also be referenced as a verb or an action that is taken. As a verb, to price is an action taken by a firm to establish the value that is to be exchanged in a buyer-seller transaction. We see this verb in action when hospitality revenue management teams price out new menus, new limited time only menus, hotel room rates, special event tickets, and how new food products should be put onto the market. As timely as this may seem, Apple just came out with a new iPhone, the new iPhone 11. The price was established by the revenue management team, and currently I believe the pre-orders are starting at anywhere from $699 to $799 for the iPhone 11. I wonder why the prices dropped so much when compared to the previous iPhone, which I think is the iPhone X. Could it be because the assigned value to the iPhone has declined? An interesting read right now is on CNN about why they're pricing it so low. You'll also notice near the end of the article that they're trying to push new subscription services. Could be an interesting read that a lot of these topics would apply to. As the previous two slides may have indicated, price can be an interesting topic to speak about from various perspectives. For example, in any useful definition of price, both the buyer and the seller must be present in the definition. Lastly, it also must include some aspect of value, as both the verb and noun definitions of price include the word or term value. An interesting question to propose at this point is whom is more important in the value exchange, the buyer or the seller. Furthermore, think about who is really responsible for assigning this value to the products and services that are being exchanged. Prices from the perspective of the seller is a matter of assigning a value for exchange for participation with the firm or ownership of the product. This price acts as a calling to buyers to begin interacting with the firm. For example, a sale on a product tells consumers that it wants to sell and get rid of extra product. There are pricing strategies that are based on this perspective of price called two-tiered pricing. This strategy is often used in food service and in airlines. And in restaurants, you can purchase a plate of pasta with no obligation to purchase a glass of wine. However, in many cases in our industry, in order to be served a glass of wine or an alcoholic beverage or multiple beverages, you must purchase an entree first. Another example in the airline industry would be upgrading to business class after having purchased a lesser ticket. Another example from the airline industry would be the Swoop airline. After I've booked my ticket, I have the option of picking my seat for an additional fee. Online gaming has also adopted this strategy. For example, you can purchase an Xbox, but before you can play online, you have to buy an extra membership to play online. From the buyer perspective, price is a prescribed amount of value or benefit for a product or service. Buyers will only purchase a product or service when the perceived benefit outweighs the value of the price. When the perceived benefit is higher than the price, the consumer views the product to be of value and as such will pay the purchase price. The equation for calculating value is the perceived benefit minus the price. If the value is if the buyer perceives there to be value after they've done their careful calculation, then they will purchase the product. And if they don't see the value, they will not. While price and value may be determined by someone else and is the difference between perceived benefit and price, how do consumers assign a perceived benefit to a product or service? They evaluate the products or services value proposition. A value proposition is a statement describing a product or service along with the price. These value props are usually determined by the marketing department using a combination and an understanding of the product or service's 4 P's of marketing. The value proposition helps consumers assign a perceived benefit of the product or service being communicated. This, minus the price, will either make the consumer purchase the product or not. Here's a good table that outlines when consumers will and will not purchase a product or service using 3 variations of the formula of the value formula. I will have you pay particular attention to the last boxes, or the bottom boxes, and these suggest that only when the net value, is greater than 0 will a customer buy the product. This means the perceived benefit exceeds that of the price, so that when the price is subtracted from the perceived benefit, we get a value of greater than 0. Because there is a net value greater than 0, customers will buy this product. And as such, it is extremely important for us as revenue managers to understand the perceived benefit our customers will assign to our products and services, because only then can we assign prices that will produce customer value. And that's really what we're in this for, is to make sales happen, but make sustainable sales happen. In order to truly understand our value proposition that is to be communicated to our customers, we must ask ourselves questions about the products and services we offer in order to answer them and answer them honestly and accurately. So we need to put ourselves in the mind of the consumer when asking, what do I get? Why is this of value? Could I get more value somewhere else? When considering these questions, it's not recommended, it is recommended to revert to the 4 P's of marketing to better understand the value that is being proposed. There are many definitions for marketing. For example, marketing can be the actions taken by a firm to bring a product to market and sell using promotional activities to consumers. However, revenue managers, from an RM perspective, marketing is a process of providing and communicating a seller's value proposition to the market or market segment that they cater to. As such, we must carefully and truly understand our product, promotion, price, place when creating our value proposition for our product or services. The first P in the 4 Ps is product. We have to understand in great detail the product or service being delivered to the buyer. We also have to understand what need or want our product satisfies. That way we can better position it and expose that need or want in our value proposition so it can be communicated to our customers or customer segment. Promotion, or the means of communicating between buyer and seller, is an important P for regional revenue managers, because it's also this promotion that dictates the channel in which our prices are communicated. Place can be also very important. It's the location of being able to deliver that product or service. In our value proposition, our customers need to know where to find our product or service and whether it's easily accessible. And our price, probably one of the most important P's. Our piece is the value given up in exchange for a product or service. Our prices have to match what our customers value. They also have to exceed the perceived benefit that our customers assign to our products through our value proposition. That is why it's important to have a thorough understanding of our product, the places in which our product is offered, the promotion or distribution channels of our product, but also the price, because that's really what will make our customers buy or not buy our products. There are other ways people have tried to price things in the past. For example, we have the role of supply and demand that can dictate price. The law of supply is the higher the demand for product, the more of it will be supplied by producers, right? So if the economy is asking or demanding a high level of butter, the sellers or producers those sellers or producers will produce more butter as a result of the demand. We also have the law of demand, which suggests that the higher the price of the product, the less of it will be wanted by buyers. A good example of this is a Picasso painting, right? The Picasso painting is absolutely astronomical, and as a result of it, less of Picasso paintings are wanted by buyers, although there is still a market for it. If we take the law of supply and demand and we smash them together and we put it together graphically, we get, or we can find a place where supply and demand, their curves connect, and this is the equilibrium price. This is a point at which, or a price point at which supply and demand are equal, and at that price, at that level of supply and demand, the price will be dictated as efficient or optimum. While this can be used in economics and in product producing industries, it's very difficult to use in our industry because demand is hard to measure because of the the perishability of our inventory. An accurate measure of demand for the hospitality industry, on the other hand, is to consider a consumer's desire to purchase, ability to pay for the purchase, and willingness to pay for the purchase. If all three dimensions of demand are present, then there is demand for product on an individual level. For example, if somebody has the desire, ability to pay, and willingness to pay for the new iPhone, they will go buy it. However, to be missing one or two pieces of this two dimensions of demand, they will not buy it. Surely everybody wants to, what was the example, eat in fine dining restaurants. They might even have the willingness to pay for it. However, if they don't have the ability to pay for it, no purchase will ever take place. A common costing technique in our industry is using costs and CVP to price products. That being said, revenue managers know better than just to mark up a product based on the cost. This is a good starting point, and of course, costs do play a role in our pricing. For example, we can't hope to make money if we price our products lower than the costs or lower than fixed costs, although some scenarios it can work out. But for the most part, it doesn't. So costs do have a role to play, but it's not the only thing we should be considering. When we're pricing our products, one thing that we can consider in pricing is our break-even point. So the amount of revenue it's going to take for us to cover all of our expenses but make no profit, right? Our price points collectively must be able to reach our break-even point, because if we don't, we will be losing money. But that doesn't mean, again, that we use only a markup method to set our prices. Here's an example of our break-even point. So where our total revenues line and our total cost lines, when they intersect, we have our break-even point. Anything above to the right of that intersection is your profits. We want to make sure that our cost and our prices have a relationship such that our profits exist within that region. We don't want to price our products below our costs, leading to a sales scenario below our break-even point and then into the losses area. There's no point in being in business if we're not going to make any money or continue our business into the future. We still have to take into consideration our costs, but it's not the only thing. We already know what variable costs are. We know that they increase and decrease with sales volume, and it's important to include or have an understanding of those unit costs and variable costs. We also have fixed costs. These remain constant. They don't change over time. These things include like rent, signage, insurance, depreciation, things like that. Our prices have to be such that above our break-even point, at our sales volumes, our price can cover our fixed cost and provide for a profit. So here's where there's a little bit of confusion over the cost-based pricing. It seems pretty simple. There's even equations to, cost out products to receive a desired profit and be able to break even and things like that. However, if we only used cost-based pricing, we could continuously increase the desired amount of profit, which would increase the sales price for a product, and people wouldn't buy it. So to solely set our prices based on cost and not consider value, we could be leaving money on the table or shying people away from making purchasing decisions because the price exceeds their perceived value of the product or perceived benefit. This is where we talk about strategic pricing. So strategic pricing is using data and intuition to make revenue management or pricing decisions, to truly understand where value comes from, who values what, and what your product or services bring to the table. It is important to implement or understand the value of strategic pricing because prices act as signals to buyer and sellers to begin to interact with each other. Prices, if they are done properly, encourage efficient production because people will buy them. If the price matches what the customer is willing to pay, has the ability to pay, and has desire for that product, they will pay the prices. And as they pay the prices, producers will make sure there's efficient production. Prices can also help ration scarce resources. If somebody is paying the right price, then we can focus our resources in creating that product that's been priced properly to bring it to market. So buyers' perceptions of price are more important than the sellers. Sure, the sellers can create the price, but to create the price, the sellers must take in consideration the buyer's perception of that price. Because again, perceived benefit minus the price equals value, and if value is equal to or greater than 0, then the buyers will purchase the product. And that's why we're learning about revenue management, is to learn how to properly price products so that our sales are sustainable. And this includes us applying strategic pricing principles. Here's a more formal definition of strategic pricing. It is the application of data and insight to effectively match prices with buyers' perceptions of value. You'll notice that in this definition, there's two important pieces. One is data, so hard numbers, analysis, laws of supply and demand, costs. So this strategic pricing definition doesn't steer away from the laws of supply and demand, nor ignore the fact that we have costs to pay, but it takes into consideration those two and insight. So really understanding how your consumers value your product or your how to create a value proposition, and only when you use those two things, the hard and the soft skills, can you effectively match prices with purchasers' perceptions of value. When they are matched properly, you have sales, you have happy customers, well, for the most part, you have customers and sustainable and loyal customer, well, maybe not loyal, but like you have a sustainable customer base because you're not ripping them off and everything appears to be fair. A large portion of our textbook is about applying strategic pricing. That doesn't necessarily mean only using one pricing strategy. Okay, this could be using multiple pricing strategy through the application of data and insight to match certain prices with certain buyers.